it was it was a show that I go, all right, this episode wasn't great. Surely next episode they'll punch it up a bit. And then the next episode gets more frustrating even more. And it's like you didn't learn what was so garbage about the last episode.
Oh, man.
The light fades with death's cold embrace. You've already been zipped and tagged. Struggle as you might, it will not help. No one can break out of the body bag. Here to oversee the autopsy, your hosts, Chris Thomas and Broke Rider Dave.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Dave Makes Chris's life very hard. Because we have another hashtag Chris Hates, and, for a horror movie podcast, why don't we give Chris his top 10 most hated hated slashers? And you gave me this list about, it feels like 2 weeks ago. And
it was longer than that. It was like a month.
Was it? Has it really?
Yeah.
And it took exactly that long for me to try to figure out what to put on this list.
Oh, man.
Well, because for a number of reasons. Well, one, I had to look up and figure out, all right, what constitutes a slasher movie? Like, what makes a slasher movie different than, any other movie?
Yeah.
Like any other horror and stuff like that? So the person basically had to have a gimmick or something. Because a lot of the movies I was thinking about putting on there, I was like, all right, but is that a slasher? It was just a pain in the ass. I thought my found footage horror thing was a hard one to do. This one was 10 times tougher. But I got the list.
All right.
And I actually have them numbered so I can keep myself on track. And they actually go by terms of intensity.
All right.
So this is a first. So this is hashtag Chris Hates Slashers. Starting with number 10. I'll go ahead and say that 3 of these things on our list are ones that we've already reviewed.
Okay.
Only 3. I didn't want it to just be a list of things that we reviewed. Number 10, Madman.
Okay.
This one just makes the list because it was forgettable.
Yeah.
It was, especially when we compared it to the movie The Burning, which it was a Versus episode.
Yeah.
The Burning was infinitely better.
Yeah.
And Madman Mars, it's forgettable, and it was just boring. The thing that stood out to me in that movie more so than the actual villain was just that awkward hot tub scene. When you talk about the movie Madman, I immediately think of that awkward, uncomfortable, weird, sexually charged hot tub scene before I even think of Madman Mars, the person that the movie is named after.
Yeah, that's true. But good for Madman getting mentioned on both of our list episodes.
I know. When you said Madman in your last list, I was like, I'm just going to stay quiet because Madman made it. When you said, yeah, Madman was like a boring movie, I was like, yeah, so boring it made it on my list.
It's like because we brought up the hot tub scene too. Then
just the hot tub scene that was just so awkward you have the camera rolling, and it's like, are we gonna cut anytime soon?
Like I remember watching it and feel like, should I leave my room for this? Like, what is going on here?
Looking at my phone, I'm like, all right, we've been sitting on these two, looking at each other, circling this hot tub for 3 minutes. This song's almost over.
Yeah, they did the full song of them just swirling around in a hot tub.
And that's what you can take away from Madman.
Yeah.
Aside from Madman Mars, it falls into that generic haunted camp movie. Every movie wants to be like Friday the 13th when Friday the 13th came out. Some knockoffs were better than others, like we talked about Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
But Madman, I don't hate it. It was just forgettable.
Yeah.
So that's why it makes 10 and not number 1.
All right.
Number 9. This one was, I think it was a Netflix original. I don't know if you would call it a slasher movie, but it is about a slasher. Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile. The movie about Ted Bundy starring Zac Efron.
Okay, all right.
Now, Zac Efron was not what was wrong with it. I think Zac Efron was perfect casting. He's charming as hell throughout the movie, which is exactly
what Ted Bundy was.
yes, which I can understand. That's what you were trying to do. You wanted to cast somebody good looking, charming, charismatic leading man to kind of show off, this is what Ted Bundy was like, and this is why he was so dangerous, because he just lures people in with his charm. My issue comes in the very end. If you haven't seen the movie, he's basically talking to his wife, I believe it was at the time, who he was married to whilst performing these murders. And there's a weird tone shift near the end where they kind of make you feel sorry for him. And he admits that, yeah, he killed this one woman with a hacksaw. He's in prison and he's behind like plated glass, and he like steams up the glass with his breath, and he writes out hacksaw. He basically admits it to her. And it was just weird. Like the tone was weird. Like they made you kind of feel sorry for him, and at the same time, it would have been so much better if he just kept denying his guilt all the way up until his dying days. I don't know.
It was I didn't read too much into like I know what he did, but did he did deny it till his dying days, didn't he? Like in real life?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, plus Netflix is filled with Ted Bundy like documentaries and stuff like that. And I had watched the Ted Bundy tapes before watching. I watched a lot of those Netflix original series about serial killers and crime and stuff like that. I think the recent one they just did was John Gacy. But the Ted Bundy tapes were a lot better. I think that they had a winning cast and a winning idea, but they fumbled at the end. And that's why it's number 9. It was just weird. It was just a weird tone shift. These first couple are just not mad, just could have been handled better. So Chris hates, maybe not necessarily. Chris is indifferent to, or Chris has issues with, would probably be more apt.
Chris isn't mad. He's just disappointed.
I'm just disappointed. All right, except for now we're getting into more of... All right, number 8... My issue with the slasher is Rob Zombie's take on Michael Myers. Now, I've defended Rob Zombie's Michael Myers. We had a whole episode where we defended Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 3.
Yeah.
And I still do. I still defend it. But I did say that the thing that I think a lot of people would have issues with, not even the cursing, not the dropping F-bombs so not just the exploitation style shooting of the movie, but that when you give Michael Myers a backstory, like, oh, he comes from an abusive family, his dad verbally abused him and probably beat him, I think that takes away from what makes Michael Myers a good horror villain, in that
it takes away from the mystique.
It takes away from the idea of he was just a kid that went crazy.
Yeah.
He was just a normal kid. Could have been any family. It could have been any suburban family, and their kid just went crazy and just killed people. He just went insane, and he's evil. Even the current Michael Myers that they have with, the 2018 resurgence of it.
Yeah.
Still have it as just this. They didn't give him a tragic backstory.
No.
It's just like, he's crazy. Yeah. And he's, I mean, there's a little bit of issues with Halloween Kills, and I still have issues with Halloween Kills, but
Halloween Kills did have Big John and Little John.
Yeah, but they didn't have, the reason why Michael is actually, doing this is, you don't understand. He was abused as a kid, and, I was like, yeah, but so are a lot of people. Yeah. But they don't become serial killers. And
plus, they changed his first kill from being his sister just some kid who bullied him. I didn't like that either. Yeah,
I mean, that, which is scarier? Your sister, a sister's upstairs like with her boyfriend, and then just gets killed by her brother who's just downstairs. Last you checked, your brother was just downstairs. He was just chilling out.
Yeah.
And then he kills you. Or, he was bullied by this kid, and he took and he. It's like you're kind of rude. I mean, you made the bully more dislikable than your serial killer.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's where you kind of fumbled the ball. Like, when you think of Michael Myers, he needs to be the biggest bad guy. Is like he can. That's why I like the new Michael Myers as well, because he's willing to kill a kid. Oh no,
Yeah.
that was Rob Zombie, or was that Rob Zombie where they killed a kid? Where no,
Um,
that might have been Rob Zombies, but at the same time, I just don't like the fact that I just know that Rob Zombie's one had I think it might have been the second one where he comes across that little kid and little kid's like, "Do you want to be friends?"
I don't remember which one I was in.
I think that was Rob Zombie's second one, but I don't know if he killed the kid in that one, but he did kill kids in the newer one, which Michael just needs to be evil, and and there's no reason for it. So that's why while I'll defend Rob Zombie's Halloween, I still have issues with his take on Michael.
Yeah.
All right, now we're getting into some hot garbage.
Okay. All right.
Number 7, I don't even remember the dude's name, but he was the killer in Fear.com. Now, I mean, I don't consider this movie a slasher, but I mean, he would be considered one just because.
Some people consider this a slasher. I
well,
do. So, yeah.
all right, well then, because it also has
Yeah.
ghosts and all that business in it. But, this is they wanted so bad for this guy to be like the next big serial killer, and
Yeah.
I to the point I don't even remember his name. I don't remember the dude's name. We don't even see him killing anybody. He just does a lot of talking.
Oh God. Yeah.
This dude just does. They gave this dude dialogue like, listen to how twisted this dude. You know, he's let her know right up front. Yeah, I'm killing you, and look at the cameras and stuff like that. And it's like, all right, but you haven't really done anything. I mean, the movie has just insinuated that you're this twisted, demented killer, but I have yet to see any evidence of that.
That whole movie's just trash. Throw it away. Like, I thought this was going to be number 1 on your list.
No. Number 1 deserves its number 1 spot. Fear.com, I will say, it's fun to watch in a group once.
With commercials.
And the commercials are good not only because they were timed really hilariously, but you need kind of a break in between all the nonsense going on to be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So it's worth a watch in a group. Have 1 or 2 or 3 drinks, and then just watch it and make fun of it on a Friday night with some friends. Other than that, you can just leave it alone. And a lot of these movies might irritate me, but I like the fact that now I have it in my index of movies I've seen now.
Yeah. No, I don't have to watch it again.
And now I don't have to watch it again. So, all right. So that's number 7. Number 6 is anyone that is not John Kramer from the Saw franchise.
Okay.
I love the Saw franchise. The first 3 are probably one of my top 3 favorite horror trilogies, or horror series is the first 3, and I even like 4 and 5. I do enjoy them, but once John Kramer Jigsaw is no longer in the picture, I don't really care. I'm pretty much here watching for the flashbacks of Tobin Bell as Jigsaw. You have Hoffman, you have John's wife, you have another guy who's a doctor who John took under his wing at one point, and it's just their motivations are just, oh, I'm a disciple of Jigsaw. Yeah. At least Jigsaw, as much as his reasons got hypocritical and nonsensical, at least he had, at least for the first 3, all right, I had cancer, I got into this crash, and I came out with a new appreciation for life, and I punish people who don't appreciate their life or who take advantage of people and stuff like that, and I'm doing it.
Yeah,
so
his original motivations were great. It made sense.
His original, and to the point where even when you're like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense, you can chalk it up to, all right, well, it makes sense to him. Yeah, it makes sense to him. This is his motivations. It might not make sense to you, but to him, he's doing it for a purpose. Yeah. Everybody else is just like, oh, well, it's because it's what Jigsaw wants. And it's like, yeah, but you're just saying that. Nobody, you don't know that. Why
do you care so much about what Jigsaw wants to do with these things to these extremes?
Plus, how are you so technologically savvy? Jigsaw was an engineer and an inventor. How is it that you're putting together all this stuff? Even if a lot of this stuff was like maybe invented beforehand, you would still have to set it up.
Like I could see the doctor being able to handle some of the stuff.
Like yes, but like
being
somebody
highly educated,
yeah, but some of these people like Detective Hoffman, he's a detective.
Yeah.
How does he know like how, and apparently everybody knows how to take voice clips of John Kramer and edit them so they can make his Jigsaw voice.
Yeah.
Everybody is an expert in audio editing. So once Jigsaw is out of the picture, I don't really care. I mean, I still like him enough, but I don't care nearly as much after he died in the third one.
Yeah.
So anybody that is not John Kramer makes the list of my slashers, as I'm like, I just don't care. Number 5, I was batting around what to number this one, but number 5 seems appropriate. And if I were to like put all of these on the list, then it would just take up a list of itself. So I just decided to group all of these into one thing.
All right.
Number 5 is from the 2000 to 2010 generic reboots. And I'm talking 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm talking 2008 Friday the 13th. I'm talking about 2005 House of Wax.
All right.
Because you can pretty much... They all have the same setup. A group of friends get stranded out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's of the 3 that I just told you. Those are the 3. They share the exact same. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Group of friends get stranded out in the middle of nowhere, get terrorized by some people. Friday the 13th from 2008. A group of friends out in the middle of nowhere getting terrorized by some people. House of Wax 2005. Group of friends out in the middle of nowhere getting terrorized by people.
But I think they had to go through these like reboots failing to get to the point where they do what they're doing now with like the requels.
You mean to realize all right, this isn't working?
Yeah, and then they kind of reboot it but make it different, like a continuation of what was happened before.
Now, all of these movies are ones that I will watch with a group of friends and just... It's kind of like those popcorn. It's just a popcorn flick horror movie where it's just turn it on and whatever. But they just become so generic in that, other than Paris Hilton in House of Wax, and was it Dean in Friday the 13th?
Sam from
is it Sam
Supernatural?
Or Supernatural? Yeah, Supernatural.
Yeah, he was in House of Wax and Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Other than those two, all of the characters are just interchangeable.
Yeah.
They're just your generic group of friends in the middle of nowhere, and they're getting picked off one by one. I mean, there's nothing in them other than maybe 1 or 2 death scenes.
Yeah.
There's nothing separating them from.
I liked Danielle Panabaker in Friday the 13th.
I mean, again, I'm not saying that all of these movies are without anything. Yeah. They're just. That's why I titled them generic reboots from the 2000 to 2010.
Yeah.
Because it was just, we know why this movie's being made. You know, it's the blatant cash grab of, you know, it's by title alone is what's putting people in the theaters.
Yeah.
I'll even put Last House on the Left in there. Because I went and saw Last House on the Left, the remake.
Yeah.
Which actually has Jesse from Breaking Bad in it. Which is pretty interesting. But that was another one where it was like, except for a group of friends, this case, a group of serial killers stranded out in the middle of nowhere getting terrorized by their victims' parents.
Yeah. I remember because I accidentally watched that movie when we were supposed to watch The Girl Next Door.
Which, in all honesty, I liked it better than Girl Next Door. Next Door just made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was...
Which it's supposed to do that, but even still, I was like, man, this is a tough one. And it turned out that our guest canceled, so I was like, I just watched this movie for no reason.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
But yes, those generic reboots, that's why it's number 5 for me, just because they're not without merit, but they're also obvious cash grabs. Yeah. And they're just interchangeable. Like, I could watch a quarter of one movie, leave for an hour and come back, and you could have put on another one of these movies and I wouldn't have known that you changed the movie.
Yeah.
I would have looked at one of the characters and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that person was in here. All right. All right. Number 4. I had forgotten about this movie, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember seeing it in theaters. See No Evil with Kane from wrestling from WWE.
I love See No Evil.
I don't absolutely hate it, but it's ridiculous. The premise alone is kind of ridiculous. Just a group of were they juveniles or were they adults? Because they were like, oh, as your punishment, you have to tidy up this abandoned hotel.
Yeah, I think they're a juvenile. Yeah,
as part of your punishment, you see this rundown hotel that we're probably going to condemn anyway. You got to tidy it up.
Yeah,
you got to clean up this thing that we're obviously going to end up demolishing anyway. And then one dude gets crushed by his safe.
Yeah,
and in just such a funny way, but it's
one of those movies. It's like my horror guilty pleasure movie right there.
And you know what? That is completely fine.
Yeah,
because I saw that in theaters, and I remember not hating it. And this is why the slasher genre, as a Chris hates, was very hard for me, because I can get pissed off at a lot of horror movies, but slashers, I kind of have a. Well, I'll explain it to you a little bit later.
All right. Isn't Danielle Harris in that too? Or was she in the second one?
I didn't even know they made a second one, in all honesty.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, the last time I saw it was when it came out, which was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I just remembered it, and I was like, thinking back, that was a pretty dumb premise. And Kane, which is funny because Kane was my favorite wrestler back in the day. Kane and Undertaker.
I was actually watching like old wrestling videos like last week, and I watched his like wrestling debut when he came out.
I have a soft spot for wrestlers in horror movies just because in the 90s and early 2000s it was a bonding thing for me and my dad.
Yeah.
I remember back when wrestling had people like Rikishi, Foley, McFoley, the Hardy Boys.
Hardy Boys is still wrestling, surprisingly.
I'm just talking about the early days of.
Yeah.
Back when The Rock was big in wrestling, before he made his transition into movies.
Hollywood, yeah.
So I do have a soft spot whenever I see wrestlers in horror movies or just in movies in general. But it has to be said. I mean, I can understand why it's a guilty pleasure for you, but that was a ridiculous movie.
Yeah.
And it was somewhat I just remembered it when I was trying to think of movies to pad this list out, and it was just more forgettable. I haven't watched it since.
Yeah. I'm going to have to watch it sometime this week.
3, on the other hand, is something that you will totally agree should be on this list. Venom.
Oh, gosh.
Venom makes this list again. Venom makes a bunch of our lists.
Such a terrible movie.
To the point where we had to have a special episode where I had to pitch a way to make it better.
Yeah.
A more likable version of it. It's the people in it are frustrating to watch. Again, I haven't watched it since we had to review it. Yeah. I don't remember who did you suggest this movie that we watched to review it?
No, I think someone on Instagram suggested this for us. We're like, okay.
And you know what? It was worth it because this has made many a list ever since.
If you want the full scoop, go listen to episode 6 of season 1.
Go. Yeah, apparently, it's that bad. You remember which episode it was.
Yeah.
I'm not as angry about it anymore now. Probably because I forgot. Because I'm not fresh off of watching it.
Yeah. If you went and watched it tonight, you'd be like, "I'm so mad right now."
Time heals all wounds. So the seething anger has simmered down, but I just remember. If anything, I remember the hate that I felt for it more than I remember why I hated it, because I only watched it once, and apparently that was enough.
Yeah.
And I just remember having frustrating characters, nonsensical reasons for things happening, and just have avoided it like the plague ever since.
Yeah. Like, it was free to watch on YouTube, and yet I still felt robbed. Still felt like I spent too much money on this movie.
They still charged me my time.
Yeah.
So that one definitely made the list. That one was a no-brainer making the list.
Yeah.
Number 2, I guarantee a lot of people haven't seen. And it's not necessarily a slasher, but it involves a slasher. It involves Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
It was a television series called Time After Time that aired in 2017 that
That sounds familiar.
basically it involved Jack the Ripper and H.G. Wells. The author H.G. Wells, who was the author of War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, Invisible Man, he's considered the father of sci-fi.
Yeah.
They, via time machine, get transported from their era to modern day Manhattan. Jack the Ripper's running around, and of course they make Jack the Ripper this suave, sexy looking man because it's a TV series and you need a suave, sexy man, which is hilarious. It's like, this guy's Jack the Ripper. He's, credited with killing dozens of women. We need to make him have sex appeal. They did the same thing for H.G. Wells. They gave H.G. Wells a six-pack.
And that's why there's only 12 episodes.
I thought that there were less.
I just Googled it, but 5 episodes aired on ABC.
Yes.
And then the last 7 aired on Access. I don't know what that is.
I only watched the first, 6, because, the premise sounded intriguing, but then that shit just got ridiculous. It was basically Jack the Ripper and H.G. Wells running around through time.
Yeah.
Which...
I actually just finished watching, a docu-series on Jack the Ripper.
Uh-huh.
It's this thing where they're investigating to see if Jack the Ripper and H.H. Holmes was the same person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really interesting.
It's the premise when you say H.G. Wells and Jack the Ripper and time travel. Initially, I'm like, all right, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
I'm willing to stick this out and see where this goes, but it just gets it falls into. Oh, damn, I just realized what should have been my number one, but I'm gonna throw this one in there as a bonus one that I'm gonna put alongside number 2, and that's a current series that's on called The Prodigal Son.
I've seen commercials for that. Yeah,
I try to like this. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna let Time After Time off the hook. Actually, I'm putting this series at number 2. This series pisses me off way more than Time After. I'm surprised it took me a second to remember this movie or this TV series. You have Michael Sheen playing a Hannibal Lecter type killer, except for instead of he's a doctor, he's a surgeon, but he's not a cannibal, and his son works for the FBI.
Okay,
and
I'm intrigued.
His son, likes the macabre sometimes, and he works for the FBI solving cases, and he often has to go to his dad, who's a serial killer, who's locked up in a maximum security prison. He has to go to his dad sometimes for advice on how to solve cases. That sounds like a great premise for a show.
Yeah, I like shows like that.
These characters are so unappealing to watch, except Michael Sheen. The biggest sin of this show is that they waste a perfectly good Michael Sheen. This movie should have been nothing but Silence of the Lambs meets The Blacklist.
Okay.
The movie should have just been nothing but Michael Sheen as this former serial killer going around helping the FBI solve crimes. It should have been basically Hannibal, but made for regular TV audiences, tamed down for regular TV audiences.
Okay.
But they make the lead character a whiny... the lead character isn't Michael Sheen, it's his son.
Yeah.
They make the lead character this whiny emo dude. They make his mother and sister detestable to watch, and they're in it a lot. They try to shoehorn in. I remember they tried to shoehorn in a police brutality message into it, which came out of nowhere. Not saying that a message of police brutality shouldn't be addressed. It really should, but they shoehorned it in to the point where it made no sense within the narrative of the actual show.
Yeah.
It was because one of the lead FBI agents or detectives is a black man.
Yeah.
And just out of nowhere, a racist cop is calling him boy and profiling him and stuff like that. I was like, wait a second. I understand what you're trying to say, but this seems like it would have been more in an episode of Law and Order,
Yeah.
not a like this had nothing to do with anything that we're. I have no problem with you trying to have a message in a show, but you shoehorned it was shortly after one of the big
Police killings. Yeah.
you could tell that they shoehorned this in like last minute, like because it happened like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So again, no problem with the message of what you're trying to say, but it's very obvious it had nothing to do with the narrative of
Yeah.
the story, which is why it made me even more upset because it was like I would have wished that if you were going to go about doing this, you would have done it in a way that made sense instead of trying to be like, "Hey, look,
Shoehorning it in an
we're
episode
hey,
real
look,
quick, yeah.
we're down with the cause too." When that pisses me off more when
Yeah.
you know what when corporations pretend to be down with social issues, but they're obviously not.
With,
Whew,
like, all
I
their
just went off
pla-
on a tangent that I had no idea that I was about to
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah.
That movie wasn't, or that show wasn't even on the list, but it had to.
Yeah.
So time after time, you're actually saved. Prodigal
Yeah.
Son makes number 2.
Yeah. All right.
Now number 1
Number 1.
deserves this list of number 1,
All right.
and I guarantee you it's a movie that nobody's heard of. It's called Cavity. I believe it's called Cavity. Now I'm sure there's another horror movie out there called Cavity. It's not that one. This one was a low budget, no budget horror movie about a serial killer who goes around. He like dates women and then brings them back home and like kills them basically.
Okay.
The reason why, I mean, that just sounds like a generic horror movie slasher.
Yeah.
The reason why this gets number 1 is for the lead actor who plays the serial killer. You can tell that this was this guy's first role, and he had no idea what he was doing. And hamming it up, trying to... It was like they said, all right, ad-lib. And the guy is trying to ad in his version of ad-libbing to try to give himself character. I'll put it to you this way. There's a scene where after he kills this one woman, he is then sitting at a dinner table talking to her corpse on the opposite side of the dinner table, calling her a bitch and laughing at it. It just comes off very weird.
Yeah.
And all will make sense when I tell you who the lead actor is. And then
Okay.
you'll be like, oh, that's why it's god awful who you casted as the main serial killer. And the main actor is your boy Chris Thomas. I was in a low budget, no budget horror movie.
All right.
I believe it was called Cavity. It was back when I was like 19.
Okay.
And if I can try to find it, I will.
Yeah, because I want to watch that.
I don't, because I haven't seen it since this movie came out. This movie, I even injured my hand because there was a scene where I had to operate a chainsaw, and I cut my hand on a chainsaw that wasn't even turned on. We decorated up the girl who played the victim, her garage.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be my murder basement, and I was supposed to be just a crazy dude who just kills people.
Oh, God.
And it was funny because I think this was for a contest,
Okay.
and at one point, I don't blame the director at all. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to put him on blast or anything because I don't know what he's doing nowadays. So I don't want to put him on blast or anything, but it was like he wanted to finish it, but then a lot of the people involved in the production kind of went off and did their own thing and then just kind of forgot about it. So he had to kind of shoehorn together a short movie based on the clips that we had, and it just came out like nonsensical. And I look back on it and I just see my acting. I'm like, God, I've been in a number of college films, like a handful.
Yeah.
And I hate my acting. There's a reason why I'm not an actor right now.
Yeah.
It's because I suck at it. But yes, that's why it's number one. Cavity, starring your boy Chris Thomas.
All right, yeah. Was not expecting that.
And if I can, I will try to find it.
Yes,
it might be in
I
one
would
of
love to watch this. Yeah,
it might be in one of my old Yahoo accounts. I don't know. I might have to ask around and see if I can unbury it.
All right.
But that's my hashtag Chris Hates Slashers. I'm my own worst enemy.
Yeah. All right. And your next list.
Yes, give me something that I'm not going to be tearing my hair out trying to think of.
Okay.
Do. I always tell myself that I'm going to have your list ready by the time we end recording, and I always end up making it on the fly.
Yeah, same. I think it's time to give you Chris Loves.
No, it has to be a Chris Hates because we have to balance out your top 10 loving with
Okay.
But next list that I'll give you after the next one you do will be we'll switch it up.
Okay. All right. Chris Hates. All right. I think I got it.
All right.
Chris Hates the Winner. So your 10 most hated movies that take place during the winter.
I thought you said the winner, like the winner of a contest. I was like,
No.
what does that mean? Like the Chris Hates the Survivors or something like that?
No.
So Chris hates the cold.
Yeah.
So it has to. So it's my winter-based movies.
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be a lot of Christmas movies in there. All right, I think I can handle that one. I think that one will. All right, so is it Chris hates winter or Chris hates the cold? So is it that it has to be in a place that's cold, or it has to be in the winter time?
It just has to have snow in the movie.
All right, so Chris hates. All right, so Chris
Yeah.
hates. All right, so
Cold, yeah.
so it could be either like in a place that's like where it's snowy all the time, or it's a winter time.
Yeah.
All right, for some reason I think I'll be able to do that one a little bit better than slashers.
All right.
All right, I'm happy with that one.
All right.
Meanwhile, you're on the other end doing your top 10 poor bastards.
Yeah. Top 10 poor bastards.
All right. Well, this one was. I got winded on that whole prodigal son rant.
I know. You just went off on a tangent. I was like, yep, I'm just
That one
going
made
that.
me. That show probably makes me about as angry as Venom does.
Yeah.
And which is appropriate that it was number 2.
Yeah.
Like I was, time after time was more just kind of like, this movie just got. And then when I mentioned Prodigal Son, I was like, no, Prodigal Son is god awful. Don't watch it. They took a great premise and then just dumped all over it.
All right.
But anyway, as always, thanks everybody for joining us and listening to us bitch and moan. Well, me. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Have a good week, everybody.
I got surprisingly heated. Like I'm still cooling down right now, actually.
Fucking Prodigal Son.
Like the first pilot episode was actually decent, and you're like, all right, I kind of see where this is going. And then halfway through the season, I was like, man, this is. I go from disappointing. It was a show that I go, all right, this episode wasn't great. Surely next episode they'll punch it up a bit. And then the next episode gets more frustrating even more. And I was like, it's like you didn't learn what was so garbage about the last episode.
Oh, man, yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Body Bag Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment as to what you'd like to hear us review or any horror movie topics you'd like to hear us rant and rave about.
And while you're at it, you can find us on Twitter at BodyBagPod and on Instagram at BodyBagPodcast.
Thanks, and we'll see you next time.